Um, I do psychic readings on crime mysteries, and if it looks like it may be helpful to police, I'll send that in either email or just regular mail. So tonight we're gonna work on 4 cases. 2 are old and one I'll close out, and one is fairly new, one's brand new. So let's get started. Um, the first one is Kelsey Berreth, who was murdered by her former boyfriend and father of her child, Patrick Frazee. And below this video, I'll have a link if you want to read all the details. It's pretty gory. It's much worse than I had ever imagined. But I did predict that Patrick was the killer. I did also predict that he had an accomplice, which I don't think is the case, although they still keep that open. His present girlfriend did get involved with cleanup of the crime scene, and she knew that he was going to murder Kelsey, so she's into this knee deep, certainly. But I just want to close this one out. I think it's just going to drag on, and we know 90% of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as a way to just mention something. I get some criticism, not very much, thanks to all my subscribers, but what the ones I do get is that it makes no sense or a person wouldn't act that way and so forth. Well, believe me, murderers don't act like normal people. Career criminals don't act like normal people. People that are on meth or heavy drug users don't act like normal people. So we sometimes throw things out there that maybe don't make sense to normal logic, but these people are not normal. And speaking of illogical cases, is the one with Nicole Olsen in San Antonio. And we've been working on this, and also a lot of criticism because so many people have written in and said, Nicole wouldn't do this. This is not her normal action. She's a very protective, wonderful mother, etc. And I agree that that's her normal action. But here we've got 4 or 5 different inputs in this case, and I think it's fascinating as well as horrific because we have 2 children involved. But let's look at this. I have predicted, and I stick with it, that she killed her children and shot herself. We'll worry about motive in a minute. The medical examiner said that she committed suicide. He also said that 2 of the children were murdered. He didn't say by whom. He also didn't tell us if Nicole had any drugs in her system, if she had any at all, but that was never announced. We have the police working with the FBI on forensics, and they are not taking what the ME said, and they're doing their own separate research. So that's another input, and we should have that, I was hoping by now, but hopefully soon. And the fourth is that we have 85% of my subscribers who wrote in their visions. They felt like that Wheeler, the boyfriend, was involved. He either did it himself and made it look like a murder's suicide, or he hired someone to do it. And he knew how to get into the gated community without being caught and so forth. And that was about, I think, 80 or 85% of the people who wrote in had that vision and interpreted that vision that it was Wheeler, Charlie Wheeler. And the last thing I want to talk about is motive. I mean, this is a horrific crime, as I mentioned, 2 kids involved. So there had to be something more than a little argument to this. So if Nicole found out that maybe Charlie Wheeler was abusing her older daughter, that would certainly be motive for Wheeler to do this, because if they had the fight about that the night before, and he felt like that Nicole was going to the police the next day, he's looking at 20 years. So that is certainly motive for him to do it. Is it a motive for Nicole to do it? Everybody says, and I agree logically that if Nicole was felt like that he had been abusing her daughter, then she would have shot Wheeler, not her daughters. So the motive is certainly the strongest motive certainly backs up my subscribers who have said that it's likely Wheeler was very much involved. So we'll see about that. I certainly stick with what I see, and I've learned to do that through thick and thin. And the next case is also very interesting and one that's very perplexing. And I've asked the viewers to give me their viewpoint on that. And that is Shannon Scott in, excuse me, in Northern California, a little town called Wilseyville. And what I see is I see I see Scott getting in a car, his car, it's a Fiat, and Shannon Scott. And then he's driving along, and then the next vision I see is that for some reason his glasses are knocked off while he's driving. And I don't know if he knocked it off or someone sitting beside him knocked it off. But then the next scene I see is Shannon Scott sitting on the curb crying, very emotional, very upset, crying. And then the last thing I see is that I have his body. I think there was foul play, and I think they killed him. I see his body 40 miles from the expected route that he would have taken to the VA hospital he was going to. So it's very perplexing. Now, his daughter did say that he wore prescription glasses. The pictures I saw, he wasn't wearing glasses, but she said he did. And also that when he would miss a day's medication, he would get very, very agitated, very upset, and he would just try to calm himself. So he had, somewhat of a nervous disorder. Maybe it's PTSD. I have no idea because he was a former Marine, whatever. But he obviously had problems with the nervous disorder, and so seeing him sit beside the curb or on the curb and crying would not be too far out. So I'm still working on it. I do get people involved, but I just want to check that. And now psychics are in one way similar to computers, garbage in, garbage out. So we are told that he left for the VA that morning, and the route and so forth. And we were told that by the daughter. The daughter, some people have some very insightful questions for this lady. She's been in a little trouble before. She lives with her 4 children and her boyfriend with her father, and some people do think that she was involved. So if her input was correct and he was along that line, then I don't know why then his body would be 40 miles away. But that's a mystery that we're going to still work with. The many emails I got with the psychic readings, I'd say almost 90% of them said there was no foul play, that he ran off the road in the mountain area down in a ravine, cannot be found, et cetera, et cetera. Once again, that makes a lot of sense. It's easier to conceive than what I'm seeing. But I'll stick with mine. Let's follow it. It is certainly a mysterious case. I think it's a case that we will find closure to. And then the last one is a new one. It is Savannah Spurlock in Kentucky. I think it's Girard County. She's a young mother of four. She had twins late in 2018, and this was in early January of this year. She had been cooped up for a while, taking care of the kids, and had gotten, I think, her mother or someone to take care of the kids, and she was going to go out and party. There is a CC camera television that shows her with her friends uh, that she was going out with, at least two of her friends. There's one black guy, one white guy was walking sort of ahead of her, and I don't know if the third guy was black or white, but I will tell you that my vision is, or my vision was a bird, a black bird that comes up and lands on a wire right in front of my face and looks at me. And that tells me everything I really need to know except where she is. And what that tells me, if you've ever heard the expression man on a wire, it is an expression meaning that person on a wire is very upset, very agitated, very stressed out, almost to the panic state. And I think the person who's responsible for this is, in fact, feeling just that. Since it's a blackbird, I will say that I think it's one of the black guys that was with her. I do not think, based on other visions I had, I do not think that he intentionally killed her. I think they were all uh, high on drugs and alcohol, and there was an accident somehow. I got it was that Savannah had fallen in a parking lot, and one of the guys backed out of a parking place and ran over her. I don't know if that is just symbolic or not, but I don't think it was like a murder. I think it was negligent homicide or whatever they might call it. But they then hid the body, and I'm working on the location right now. So you should read about this. The location is very important. They cannot get anything from the friends as to her whereabouts. I don't know what their alibis have been, but I think they were pretty lame. So it's one of her black friends through negligence and through them being incapacitated, really, that she died. So next week, I'm going to try to introduce you to two new ones. And you can write in and request that I'd look at some of these, and I do review many. And the one last thing, too, is that I've been doing lots of private readings. And I think the best way to do this is no one knows what to send me. I'm getting donations from $10 to $100. So I think the thing to do is just uh, uh, send $30 from your PayPal to my Gmail address. And then at the same time, give me a little background uh, of the situation, and so I can sort of lock in to the person or persons you want me to read on, and then um, ask me specific questions, and then I can start from those specific questions and expand, hopefully. So good luck. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy being with you, and I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye now.